Oh, here at startup, here at startup, here at startup. I am pumped up this weekend. Angela Hermann is here with me to talk some Southwest 4 stakes races at Oaklawn Park. Angela, there are 4 prep races all across the country. It is a huge weekend when we're talking about 3-year-olds. I'm so excited to be talking races with one of my favorite people to talk races with, someone that I can handicap races and literally talk hours and hours and hours trying to beat favorites. So how we're going to do it. Angela Hermann, live from Canterbury. How you doing, Angela?
Greetings. Yes, I am in the Canterbury studio, not at Oaklawn, not at Gulfstream, where those preps are this weekend. But we will talk all about them and try to make as much money as we can wherever you are in watching these preps on the way to the Kentucky Derby.
I actually think of all of the tracks that have the big preps, we are going to be talking about the most interesting one from a gambling standpoint by far, because if you stack up the other 4, Fierceness will be pretty tough. Nisos will be pretty tough. The Withers, you'll have 1 or 2 shorter price horses in there that'll probably take action. This Southwest that we're going to talk about as the feature for Saturday, race number 11 on the Oaklawn card, you can make cases for 4, 5, 6 horses in that race. It's a really interesting stepping stone race on the road to the Derby.
It is. And this pick 4, this sequence actually very interesting in the standpoint where you kind of hope that it goes off before the Withers does, because the winner of that race could very much impact the prices and the price of the horse I like in the Southwest. But that'll all come down to timing and what kind of price we might get as a result.
So Angela and I are going to dive into the daily racing form past performances. You can get DRF past performances for free right now when you sign up with a DRF Bets account right off the bat. When you deposit, when you use a promo code STAKES, they're going to send you 10 free all access past performances. And we're going to look at the formulator past performances right now as we get into races for Oaklawn Park Saturday. Angela and I will look at the all stakes pick 4 starting in race number 8, as I believe 15 stakes races between the 4 tracks, Oaklawn, Santa Anita, Aqueduct, and Gulfstream this weekend. So kick back and get ready for a really fun Saturday. Angela, we will see a sharp, really cool horse to start things off in the King Cotton. I always forget the last, year and a half about how good Skelly really has gotten. This is a sharp sprinter. He has won 7 of his 11 races, but he's won 6 in a row. He's looking for his 7th straight win. He didn't race from May of last year to December, so we missed seeing him in the second half of 2023 in a lot of the big sprint races. So he's kind of been out of sight, out of mind. But this is a horse who loves Oaklawn Park. He's really, really fast. He's drawn well. He's not the type of horse I like to gamble on because he's a short price. But damn, as a horse player and just looking at him, he's really cool. You know what you're going to get from him. Straight speed ball, and the outside draw should play pretty well for him in here.
Well, this was one of the races that you had to wait for it to be drawn to see if there was some hole you could punch in it. And that would have been a different draw, maybe even the rail. But he drew the outside. It's this sandbox, like you said. And it doesn't help matters that the same barn also saddles the other 2 horses, well, 2 of the main contenders, who would go up and push the issue. I don't think that they'll call for a 3-horse speed duel in the Asmussen barn. But, they'll be close enough, but probably not pushing Skelly to his limit early. So just too much in his corner. There's some cool horses in this race that are going to go off at prices that generally they shouldn't be, an edge-to-edge Tejano Twist. But all arrows keep pointing back to the outside horse. You really listed off a lot of the things to like about him, but you got to find things you don't like about him, and those are really difficult to find in this particular spot with Skelly.
That's the key. It's okay, let's knock him. If we're going to try to beat a horse like Skelly, we think he's been one-dimensional. He's not really been a horse who's shown that he wants to sit off the pace a whole lot. The problem is in here, he's just so much faster naturally than everybody else in this race. So you'd have to have horses that were dead set on trying to make his life difficult more than even winning the race for them or doing what's best for them. And that's what makes it so hard to handicap. A horse like Edge to Edge, he's in nice form right now. He loomed up nicely. He took a big shot at Skelly, but I can't find a reason why this outcome is going to be any different than 3 of the last 4 times when he's faced Skelly. And he's run pretty well in a couple of them, but he's just not as fast early, and he spots him a few lengths.
I know. And you try to draw up scenarios that could get Skelly beat. And even when I look at them through rose colored glasses and hope that there's some sort of meltdown, it's asking a lot. And it's asking that against some horses who might not be as fit, or he got that race out of the way to get one off the shelf. Some of these
That
haven't.
was where you're supposed to beat him last time.
I know, I know. And if you couldn't do it then, like you said, how on earth are you going to do it now? It's going to require a lifetime effort from somebody and some things probably to go wrong for Skelly in order to reverse fortunes.
Yeah, you mentioned Tejano Twist, super nice horse, but he's the complete opposite from a style standpoint. He wants to be way out of it, and he'll come rolling late, but we've seen this play out before last year in the Count Fleet, and Skelly gets a big jump on him. He closes, he runs well, he finishes third that day. I was trying. I was really looking at this race, trying to find. I wanted to try to get to the 2 Excess Magic. I couldn't. The horse who if someone's playing exactas and tries, a horse who I think is better than his last race, and overall I've always been kind of high on him as a horse, is Osborne. It's just not the right type of shape for him. But if you're looking to complete exotics in this race, he might be a horse that I wouldn't be shocked if he outruns his odds. He beat Skelly before Skelly, got really, really good at the start of last year. And he actually sat pretty close in that race, but we haven't really seen him sit too close many times since then. And that's my worry, is that the trip that he gets, he's just in picking through this race and trying to find some value out of it. He's a horse who I could hook up with some underneath, but Angela, I could not get past Skelly in this race from a pick 4, pick 5 standpoint. I didn't want to use other horses that I really don't like their win chances even close to as much as his.
And at least with a horse with Osborne, you see him at lower prices. They've been getting better, just a shade under 10-1 lately. You're probably going to get the best price that you're going to get on him in a long time. I mean, if you are a fan, this is the time to dive in on him. But I'm with you. You have to start with Skelly. And if you can't get past him, that is difficult. Then you just tip the cap and move along to some other prices, perhaps in the sequence, or at least races that look like they could produce a little bit more unpredictable outcome. Whereas I think if you maybe drew this race up and asked him where he'd like to draw, who he'd like to be against, anything like that, it would come pretty close to what he's getting in the King Cotton.
Yeah, it's a really great spot for him. It really is, for Skelly, who's going to be a heavy favorite in this race. Race 8 to kick off an all-stakes pick 4 on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. Let's turn the page to the Martha Washington 3-year-old fillies with a $250,000 purse, going a mile into 16th. And in this race, Denim and Pearls is your 6-5 favorite on the morning line, coming in off of a runner-up effort in a stakes race here at Oaklawn Park on December the 31st. She ran very well that day. She actually took the lead. She finished second to a horse named Ice Cold, who she had previously defeated in the race before that. So from a starting standpoint, she's the morning line favorite. She's the one that they'll have to hold off in here. She's run some nice speed figures in her last couple. So the horse to beat. How are we approaching this race from a gambling standpoint? So if you and I single Skelly in the prior race, we have the opportunity now to use a couple extra in these next few races if we so choose. I feel like I'm fine with Denim and Pearls. I don't really have that many knocks on her. I don't think that the difference between her and some of the other rivals in this race is nearly as far as like what we saw with Skelly, though. I think there are horses in here who could step up and who could improve and who could be right in the mix with her. Talk to us about how you see this race.
And this goes along with the Southwest, right? These are more developing horses as opposed to proven commodities. And I do think that it's a high compliment that Brad Cox pays In Good Taste by lining her up out of her maiden win right next to the favorite in the Martha Washington. So I'm going to be leaning towards that one of the 2 Cox fillies. And In Good Taste also comes from some local connections. Admittedly, I have been following In Good Taste since she started out. Barry and Joni Butzo live here locally, and they bred this filly. Maho Bay is down in St. John's, where they do have a vacation home. And they name a lot of horses, including her mother, in that spirit. And In Good Taste was very game in winning that maiden race at Oaklawn Park. Now, she did that towards the front end, but she's not a horse that needs the lead. She was in between horses for a while. She got a bit thrown at her for for her maiden win. She did hang on by a head. She did that in gritty fashion, and she beat a nice filly. So putting her in here is auspicious, but still, Brad Cox is 20 for 67 over the last 5 years, taking maidens and putting them into non-graded stakes. And if you want to filter that down to what she's doing, he's 6 for 16 with 3-year-olds, 3 for 7 on dirt, and 3 for his last 4 in that respect. So if he's going to compliment her and say she belongs in this spot, I'm going to agree in the hopes that I get a price on both her and maybe Band of Gold towards the inside. But in you looking for a long shot, I would guess that you used Band of Gold in the mix. She did win impressively first out. She too took on non-graded stakes company, in the Untappable. And she came up short, but I'm willing to forgive that one and see if she can't redeem herself at a big number and use her in the mix along with In Good Taste.
Yeah, you were talking about the outside horse, absolutely in the mix for me. Band of Gold is in the mix for me too. She ran into a nice horse named Alpine Princess, who has become very good. She's right now, I think, one of the top 3-year-olds. And what's nice about Alpine Princess is she can win in different ways too. That particular race, she was on the front end and there was just no passing her that day. Runner-up West Omaha, we actually saw come back and win the next prep race at Fairgrounds, the Silver Bullet Day. So we're looking at a horse, Band of Gold, who came out of a very strong race. I completely agree with you. I think you want to throw her in the mix. You pointed out the race with the 9, In Good Taste. It's a little deceiving because it almost looks like she's just kind of right on the lead throughout. You know, she was with the leader. She gets caught 3 deep of 4. Then she gets caught in between, and all of a sudden she's in the second flight. Yeah. And she's third, and she's not in a great spot, but she sits patiently. She waited. She looked like a pro who had been in, 10 races and not just the one that she'd been in prior to that. That was also her first time going longer, where it's easy to get a little eager there. And you pointed out the horse that she beat. So checks a lot of those boxes that I'm looking for in this race too. One that I did want to mention is the 5, Promise Me an Empire. She's going to be in the mix for me too. I think her overall form is a little bit better than it might just look, especially when you're kind of looking at some of these restricted races. Sometimes they don't seem as strong on paper. I really like the progression that we've seen from her. You can kind of look through some of these fillies too. She beat a horse 2 starts back that was the next out maiden special weight winner named Mixer. And this race has come back pretty strong. There was another one named Pray for Champagne that came back and beat Softer. And she was the 3rd place finisher that day. In the Churchill race, just visually, was another one that I think it's a little bit different than it may have looked. It wasn't just like a speedball race, and she's not one-dimensional. She can sit a little bit. She has some speed. She's kind of going to be in the spot that I'm looking for, Angela, in this particular race. So she's going to be in the mix for me in a race where I'm going to use a few. Pointed out already 3 of them that are on the radar. Any others in here that are intriguing to mention?
I'm going to be keying in on the 2 and the 9 in here, trying to beat the 8. I will maybe use Promise Me an Empire underneath. I agree with your points that she has some versatility to her and she does have that experience. I don't like the fact that we haven't seen her since November. I'm thinking that the better targets are in front of her. But if you can get a drift up from 9 to 2, I mean, Harry Hernandez will get her into the race, I'm sure. And we'll just see if she can pick up where she left off or improve it all and see where those restricted maiden special weights are going to come back up in the grand scheme of things with these. Because some of the horses that she was, I'm sure, trying to avoid in those spots are back here in this stake, some of those very pricey horses. So we'll see how much she has grown and matured and if she can hang with these, because the price will probably be right.
There, one horse that I don't really know what to do with, and I may try to find a way to have her on 1 or 2 of my tickets, especially if I'm spreading in this race, is Tap It Janelle. The first 2 races at Remington and Delta, they were very, very strong and don't really know what she was beating. She did it very nicely. And I think in that last race, she was probably a little farther back than I feel like they would have wanted. I just think from a trip standpoint, they're going to get aggressive with her in here. So I wouldn't be shocked if she outruns her odds and gets just more aggressive handling, gets put into the race more from the inside. Don't know how good she is, but those speed figures early on in the career, they weren't far off.
Fair. And she will be able to probably keep herself close to the rail and save some ground with her positional speed. But at least visually watching, Ice Cold and Denim and Pearls last time, they appeared to run away from her as opposed to her getting too tired. I won't doubt that a horse can improve at any given time in the beginning of their 3-year-old year. She just have to improve a lot. So I guess I would prefer horses that you brought up before.
Like it wasn't even that she had an excuse or a bad trip. I just think they're going to try different tactics, because I watched that race and I couldn't really, she didn't have an excuse, or it wasn't that she got caught in trouble. I feel like that they'll probably just try to give them a better run for their money. Not sure how good she is, but I'm feeling the 9's going to run a good race in here. And it sounds like that's the horse that you started with. I think we both feel like you're going to get a good run for your money from In Good Taste. Could sit nicely out there, and throw in the 2 Band of Gold if you're looking for a price in this one.
I think she has the most, if not almost the most, upside in this field. So I'm going to stick with her, use Band of Gold underneath with a rebound, hopefully, in her, and maybe try to spread out in race number 10, because I thought that in this 9th I could narrow it down to just those couple, but they will be good prices. So hopefully they can pick up a little bit of that slack for Skelly.
Okay, Angela, let's move to the American Beauty. Can't talk about Kevin Spacey anymore, so that's can't.
You
can't
just
talk.
did. Good
I was gonna say, got to move on. Used to like the movie, but can't even enjoy it nowadays. Let's go to the 10th race. We are gonna have 6 furlong filly and mare sprinters. They're gonna be going quick in here, and they're gonna be led by a horse that is even money on the morning line, Alva Star. She's a horse who's been very good as of late. And when you look at the 3 horses that she's lost to in her 3 losses, 6 career starts, 3 losses, they were all horses that are in really nice form at the time. She lost to a horse named Unifying, who came right back to win their next start. She lost to a horse named Jersey Pearl, who came right back to win their next start. She lost to a horse named Vava, who was in really good form at that point. Vava was supposed to actually come and run out here in the La Brea at Santa Anita on opening day, and there was all the shipping issues for some of the horses that couldn't travel out here. She didn't end up coming out here, and she would have been probably favored in that race. So, and Alva Star also has shown that she can sit off the pace a little bit if she has to. 7 furlongs might have been a little too far. So we knocked, a favorite in the prior race. She feels solid, but she hasn't started in a few months. And this is the starting point for her season. You had pointed out with a horse we were talking about in the last race. This is not probably the end-all, be-all goal for Alva Star and their connections this year. So she could be a little bit short in this race, and maybe a horse that'll be stronger and more fit next time, or making her 3rd start back in a few.
You said it. This is the race you're supposed to try to beat her. Because as good as she is, she still has, kind of like in the previous race talked about, some bigger things probably ahead of her. So as good as she might be, and her talent alone might win this, I am probably going to spread out and take some shots against Alva Star. I'm going to use Condensation. And Condensation is going to be a horse that I probably
That's
don't.
my top selection.
We didn't talk before this.
No, we did not talk at all. So go ahead. I'm glad that you're on this one. Talk to us about Condensation.
I mean, if you're looking for a filly that is capable of running, it's not that she consistently could beat Alva Star. You're not looking for all 10 times to have the better horse. You just want that one time, because this is that one time that you try to beat Alva Star. Condensation can come from off the pace. She can push the issue. She drew to her outside. She has lots of experience, and she has recency to her. And all of that makes me want to include her in things, include some other horses in here, and be okay with being a little bit wrong. As long as I have the right horse, even if Condensation doesn't run, use quite a few in here. And watch the weather, because some of the mares on the inside, some of the older mares that might be good prices, have proven to have an affinity for a wet track. Some of these have run over it before, but not proven themselves to be proven commodities. And when you do look at the forecast, it's sketchy, but really consistently not many of these have come up with an effort that would beat Alva Star if she's right. So in that spirit, Condensation doesn't always run that way. She may need a few things to go her way, but that could happen in here, and the price will be worth trying. So why do you like Condensation?
Well, the 2 horses I just mentioned that were nice, that beat Alva Star, the last 2 times that Condensation lost on the dirt, She lost to Jersey Pearl and Unifying. Those two same horses that I just mentioned that were the ones that beat the even money favorite. So she's faced really good company from a speed figure standpoint. That 6 furlong race on the dirt at Churchill, that's exactly what we're hoping for here. Something like that, right?
Yep.
She sits off the pace. They go fast in here. Alva Star gets caught up a little too close to the lead early on. And we see the 5 along with the 4 and the 7 all hooking up.
Right, exactly. And I mean, condensation, to add it further, they might even see Mahoning Valley from November go, oh, Mahoning, but White Chocolate went up to Aqueduct, won a nice allowance after that. And then I believe she was 4th in the Interborough, but that form is traveling. Maybe she can shoot. And you mentioned Jersey Pearl. Condensation has been keeping good company, even if she's been well beat by them. And that's enough of a case to try to take a shot while she's been running a lot recently. Alva Star may need this one to get back to 100%. If she wins, she wins. Kind of like Skelly earlier. She is obviously the most talented one at her best, but is she at her best? We find out on Saturday.
And you could see the progression last year in early 2023. She was facing some of the better 3-year-old filly sprinters. She was facing, Red Carpet Ready when she was in that Money's Gold race in the 8 Bells. It just looked like going long was a little too long for her. So she had a very, very normal pattern for a 3-year-old that ran well. Hey, let's see how good we are. Can we stretch out and go a little farther? Okay. Honeybee, Fantasy, that's probably a little too much going a mile and a 16th. She did not run poorly in those races. Not at all. And it just looked like, those are a little bit better horses going a little bit longer. They cut her back in the 8 Bells. That's a tough race on Derby and Oaks weekend. And she was 4th in that race at 18-1 behind Red Carpet Ready and Money's Gold and A Seed. Those 3 horses are nice horses. Right. Following that, she's on a sloppy track. You have a couple grass races there in the mix. You start going race by race. There aren't many of them that don't make sense. Almost all of them, you understand why she ran the way she did that day. Yes. Those are the horses who I love to play, because you were pointing it out. They're not the most consistent, but from a gambling standpoint, can they jump up on one day with the right trip, with the right shape, in the right race, with the right field and win? Yep. Those are the horses we look for as gamblers.
Right. And he's given her an opportunity to be good at a number of things. He's tried her sprinting on dirt, going long, going short and long on turf. If he's decided that this is what she's best at, she probably is. So why not take a chance if it's going to be a big number like she will be?
Condensation, a big price. Angela and I trying to talk you into that one. I feel like they're going to try to get Royal Spa a little more involved early. The blinkers, tip that a little bit. She's just not that fast, but she's won both times at 6 furlongs. So it's kind of mixed signals here where she does have enough speed. You look at the March race that she won here at Oaklawn Park where Santana got her and now Santana's back on. I think they're going to try to get her in a spot like that, sitting 2 lengths off with the blinkers on and put her more in the race. If that is the case, I think she can be a player in here. I think she has some ability. I'm just a little bit worried with her overall body of work. She's not as nearly as fast as some of these other sprinters are early.
And drawn towards the outside will help. 9-2, I felt, would be a bit of an underlay on Royal Spa. And both of her last 2 wins came with Lasix. So without that. They're adding blinkers towards the outside. We just don't know exactly which Royal Spa is going to show up today because, 4th in the Grade 1 La Brea can be forgiven. Some of the other efforts, maybe not forgiven. So she's another one, kind of like Condensation. They're capable of throwing in an effort that would fit with these, but you're going to get a much better price on one than the other. So if they bring a similar sort of resume or appeal to the table, if you will, I will take the 8 over the 9. But I could see the case that is being made for her because she too has some upside and not as many miles to her as some of the rest.
Who have we not mentioned that you want to give a plug to? Anyone else in here?
I'm a little interested in Adeline Julia on the cutback, just a touch, because she does keep herself in the race and she's as consistent as they come too in a much different way. But I'll be interested to see how she does stack up with these because she doesn't need any one sort of trip. So with the ability to save some ground towards the inside and maybe make her own trip, when an opportunity appears, could get her in the mix too. I don't love her to win. It seems like they've been putting her in very good spots, but maybe they're running out of those very good spots, so they have to put her in spots like these. But still, she will probably be, I would guess, in that 7 to 10 range, like she was
Yeah.
last round, and she'll be coming. So
She's super fair at that price. Absolutely. And the
that's
race to me that sort of just shows you that versatility is not even a race that she ran that well in, but she's chasing Ujiri and not that far behind a really fast Ujiri. And we see other races where she has some nice finish to her, and now she's cutting back. So if she's not that far out of it, she should be fitter than a lot of these other horses.
I would imagine.
Right.
Yes.
And just if she can stay within striking range, and I absolutely think she's playable in this race if you're spreading around a little bit in a fun race where it looks like we have a vulnerable favorite that we think you might be able to play against starting out the year, Alba Star, off a couple month break. We both give big endorsement to Condensation. Make sure to throw this one into your pick fours at least. And if you get a fair price, maybe toss a few bucks on Condensation.
My thoughts exactly.
Let's finish it up in the Southwest. The 1.16 Southwest will offer 20 Kentucky Derby points to the winner. Top 5 finishers of this one get Kentucky Derby points. And you teased when we were talking about it a little bit earlier, how this race shapes up. It does look like going through inside out, it should be a very honest pace with Maycock's Bay coming off of a monster win where he earned a huge 95 Beyer speed figure. And when horses win like that on the front end, usually they want to do that again and they'll get really aggressive because that works so well for them. You have a horse like Charleston even who it has shown some speed. It would not be a shock to see this horse close. Otto the Conqueror is going to go. Winstock wants to go, no doubt about it. And you have Carboni, who we've been talking about, very, very quick, super talented horse. He wants to be forwardly placed. I could see the 10 and 11 both needing to be in the mix, even the 12 Awesome Road from out there to try to get positioning. When you have that many horses where you could see combinations of them on the lead, I was looking at this race, Angela, trying to find horses that are going to be in the next tier and some of the closers.
Fair enough. Okay, I can definitely see the pace that you laid out materializing, but I could also picture one or two of them shaking loose on the inside, and that's what unfortunately makes Carboni a little bit more appealing because he'll probably be to their outside. And
he's of the speeds, he's the one I need.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to play this race using him of the speed horses and then a couple others that I think will come from off the pace. I feel sort of sounds like you're that way too. If there's any one of these horses that's good enough to just run away and hide from the others, I think it's Carboni.
I do too. And the way that he was finishing off in that optional claimer very much validates putting him into this spot and seeing what you've got and seeing if you have a horse that can rate a little bit, relax a little bit. I would guess that he probably could from the outside, 2 starts behind him. And it's not like that pace last time was totally bonkers. I mean, it was quick, but I think that Carboni could probably find it in him to relax a little bit, even if it does land him in the second tier like you're looking for. And I think that Otto the Conqueror probably on the inside will make sure that this horse doesn't get himself entangled in anything and gets out and gets clear, because that seems to be more how he needs to run rather than how he prefers to run. That was my thought on those two. But Carboni still, even if he doesn't win today, is a horse that I'm going to be keeping an eye on in the future. He's not going to provide anything as far as value goes. And I mean, he hasn't thus far anyway. So he's not a horse that you like if you're price shopping. But if you are investing in the future, and we're all looking at the Kentucky Derby when we're watching the Southwest, he is the one that stood out to me, at least with what he's done thus far in those 2 starts.
Yeah, I think I'm going to play this race, pick fours from live and closing, probably 6, 7, 8. I think those are the 3 that I like in here most. You mentioned Carboni has been really impressive, and that was a perfect step forward for him. It was a really nice race where he got the lead. He dealt with a little bit of pressure, kicked clear. It wasn't overwhelming pressure to where it was a tough race for him in his first start going long. It was how you would have wanted that race to play out. Perfect stepping stone for him. And I don't have any knocks on him whatsoever. My only concern would be if some of these other horses can push him, and if he knows if he's a step slow in a race like this in a big field, it might be a little bit more difficult. What would it be like for him if he's sitting third or fourth? Can he do that? Always a question you want to be able to answer with a horse who's going to be at a short price. And you pointed out Lightline, who was impressive finishing second that day. And Lightline, on paper, he looks really tough in the withers at Aqueduct.
He does. And he is going to be a good yardstick for Carboni. And like I kind of said before, a reason you would want to play these multi-race sequences if you think that he has any value to begin with. If you don't, then it doesn't make any difference. But if you think that he's a horse that you could hone in on and still get decent value, horizontally speaking, then you're going to want to play this, because right around the first leg, right around race 8 is when the withers is going to go off, and you'll get a good gauge as to how that race does stack up with these 3-year-old preps. I don't think that he's going to provide much. I'm not going to use a whole bunch in the Southwest as far as horizontal plays go, but if I'm really looking for a weird bomb linebacker, a couple to the outside is still a maiden. I know he's still a maiden, but he can pass horses. I like that they're putting blinkers on him. I like that he drew towards the outside, and I wouldn't expect him, I guess, to get much different of a trip. So if I like the one, I kind of like the other, even though it would take a lifetime best for him. That's not out of the question in start number 4. I don't think it'll be good enough to win, but he could be one to use in the mix at a huge number. And then we'll go find him somewhere around even money in a maiden race a few weeks later.
Yeah, I love playing horses like this in these type of prep races because we know this horse has talent. He's a little quirky. That's all. That's the difference between him having won one of those races and finishing third twice and second. He's a little quirky. He's not as fast early as some other horses are. So those horses that are a little more precocious and a little farther along than him, they're always going to beat him in those races going 6.5 and 7 furlongs. These are the types of horses who I'm always making a mental note when you see them run and you see them finish well for down the line for a spot just like this, especially a spot like this one where we're not quite yet into the bigger preps. So you still have some of these races that might not be quite as strong with the big contenders yet. And this is one of them where it's a fantastic betting race. We don't really know if any of these horses is a Kentucky Derby horse. Okay. And that's what's cool. Like, we have no idea. I feel pretty confident that Fierceness is. I feel pretty confident that Nisos is maybe not be able to get into the Kentucky Derby, but he's that caliber of a horse. We'll see how the rules play out this year. But this is a really good group of horses that are pretty evenly matched. They all feel like they're kind of in the same spot in their careers too, where they haven't proven a whole lot. And this is a big race for all of them. As Carboni probably leads the way. Other couple that I want to mention, Angela talked about linebacker at a very fair price. I'm going to go with Common Defense as another one who can sit that trip just off the pace. His win at Oaklawn, it was visually really nice. He didn't earn a huge speed figure for it, but he was about 3 lengths off. He was inside. He moved out to the 2-path, and then he angled around a tiring horse really wide. He dealt with some traffic, and he showed multiple moves. Those are races that I love seeing a horse have. It kind of reminded me of the race we were just talking about with the 9 horse, the Brad Cox horse in the Martha Washington on the outside, who had a race like that was kind of in between and like a little deceiving traffic to overcome. I think there's something there with Common Defense. I want to use this one in the mix for sure. And Liberal Arts is a horse who I'm probably going to bet him to win if I can get around 5-1 or so. I love his progression. 5 furlongs, too short for him. Stretches out to 6, runs really well, but again, a little too short. And then we get to 7 furlongs. He beats Otto the Conqueror that day. He ends up finishing 3rd in the Iroquois. And then in the street sense, he wins. And it was on a sloppy track, so he can handle that surface. But he's been fine on all other surfaces. So it's not as if his big monster race was just being the beneficiary of a sloppy track. And I like some of the company he's kept. And definitely versions of this race where Carboni doesn't clear, couple other horses press, and he's one of the horses that gets the trip.
He very well could. And if you're looking for a horse with some established form to them, I'm on the opposite end of that, at least when it comes to some of these earlier ones in the spring. Because if you're looking for a horse that's on this trail, they're probably going to go through maiden races at Keeneland, Churchill, Oaklawn, sometime in this last like 4-month period, something like that. You're going to get very deep, contentious fields. So even though they're maidens, they're tougher races than they look. So Common Defense coming up with that effort that you mentioned, even though he is coming out of his maiden race, I would definitely give him a longer look at a spot like this than I would at almost any other time of the year. Liberal Arts is the opposite kind of horse.
That's a great point that you're making. Because that horse that's more proven, you feel like they understand, they think they're a Derby horse, and they're not as worried about this race, right?
Yes.
And versus a horse like Common Defense, a horse, other horses that you mentioned, even Carboni right now, they don't know who they are. They don't really know, do we want to go long? Are we this caliber? We're just going to be in this race. We're going to try to win this race. We're going to try to run the best that we can, win this race, because I don't know if they're worried about the Derby yet. Horses like that.
Right. Yeah, this was obviously for a horse that just broke his maiden. This might not have been plan A. This is something that came up perhaps as a pleasant surprise. Some horses like Liberal Arts and some other horses along this whole card. I mean, this is where they plan to go. Not always the case until a horse breaks his maiden, or if you don't even want to wait, you throw a linebacker in here or something like that. You're going to get a good price, but you know that they've fit with these kinds of horses. So I don't mind that take at all, and I don't mind using those sorts of horses at all. And Common Defense is a good example of that.
Best of the 4 Kentucky Derby preps this weekend is at Oaklawn Park. It's the Southwest. It's going to go as race number 11, and it will finish off an all stakes pick 4. They did a really nice job there too, of some of the days when the card doesn't end with a stakes race. You know, they'll have these great stakes races, and then it'll be a non-stakes at the end. They wanted to make sure that you can bet on all their biggest races and combine them in that pick 4, races 8, 9, 10, and 11. Angela, as you mentioned, you won't have the live racing, but you have some really cool promotions going on all the time over there at Canterbury for fans that are playing live there. You have the Road to the Derby stuff, and I've seen you on different websites. I was looking at Horse Racing Nation the other day, and then you popped up talking about a race from Turfway. I was like, oh, hey, there's Angela giving me some analysis about Turfway. Tell us everything that you got going on right now.
Well, right now we're getting ready for the live season. It's hard to imagine that it's already February. I was showing Gino before we started with this. There is very little snow left from Snowcross, and in Minnesota, it has been a very abnormal winter. We are thinking live racing more than ever because it's been in the 50s. We're coming up in May on our live season. We're getting things ready to go as we speak. And hopefully we can roll out some of these changes that we're talking about and show you guys very soon. Wagering menu being tweaked a little bit. Some things will be changed around, and it'll be a different looking Canterbury season this year, but it's coming up fast. We're excited about it.
Angela, it's always a blast catching up with you. Love talking the races with you. We'll get you back now. With every week, there's big races somewhere else. So I'm going to have to pick your brain again, and we'll be calling you again real soon to come join us in handicap.
I'll see how many 20-1 shots we can converge in on a spring. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, after the millions and millions watch this, there's no way the horse is going to open up at 10-1 at least, because, you know, the power of Angela and Gino, when we speak, the people listen. And hopefully all of you listen to some of the great analysis from Angela today. A big thank you to her for joining us. And I hope all of you have an awesome Saturday at Oaklawn Park. Good luck in all your plays there. If you need any extra help with other prep races and other big races for the weekend on That's What G Said podcast, I covered the races from Gulfstream with Barry Spears. Matt DeSantis helped me out talking about Aqueduct and their 2 stakes races over there. And then I'm going to dive into Santa Anita's races. They probably are going to be off the grass with a lot of the rain out here. So I just figured I'll take care of those ones since we may have to call some audibles there. Angela, we'll talk again real soon. Thank you so much.
I hope so. I didn't know about the full lineup. Those are tough acts to follow, but I hope we all make you some money. Thanks for talking to me.
Thank you, Angela. Folks, we'll talk to you again real soon. Let's crush it this weekend all over the place.